been foggy since morning. The heads of the bamboo trees hang low, and the evening primrose that bloomed last night are all soaked to the skin. On days like this, neither the ferocious red-cheeked myna birds cry, nor can you hear the sounds of the golden orioles, the yellow-billed grosbeaks, the cuckoos, magpies, firebirds, or brush warblers. Yesterday at dusk it looked like it was going to rain, so I gathered up a bit of firewood and kindling, and now my body's all stiff. Today's the day we're supposed to shave our heads clean and bathe at the temple. I really wanted to go down and take a hot bath, but when I thought about going all the way down and climbing all the way back up, how wet my clothes would be from all the dew on the trail, and then how sweaty it'd make me, I no longer felt like it. I'll probably try boiling some water and pouring it over myself in the outhouse. Living in the woods, the effect of the weather is massive. When snow fills the sky, your mood is just as fresh, and life is one great pleasure. But on rainy days, when the winds are howling wickedly, your entire mind, body, and soul grow weary and dark. The birds and beasts of the forest are just the same. As fellow sentient beings with emotions, humans and wild animals aren't all that far apart. Still, though we can sometimes grow close and share mutual affection, as your meetings grow more infrequent, the bond in the relationship weakens and is forgotten, out of sight, out of mind. Something happened a few days ago. Almost without exception, I'm out to the kitchen at 6 a.m. to prepare the dawn meal offering. On that day, I was a bit delayed, finishing a few more pages of translation work. It was 6:30 when someone started knocking on the shutters. Wondering what sort of rascal was coming by to see me so early in the morning, I went to the porch, and as I opened the shutter, the little rascal revealed itself as a squirrel hopping out and bounding away. Because I'd been opening the door at the same time every morning, when it was a little late, my forest family member, the squirrel, knocked on the door wondering what was going on. Was she paying back for the rice, wheat, and beans she'd eaten after squirreling into the house through the chimney's ventilation shaft, perhaps? Creatures as smart and adorable as these are sold for fur by Koreans blinded by a desire to acquire foreign currency. When the day's work has really tired me out and I fall into a really deep sleep, there are times I'm late for morning prayers. In these cases, you're usually awakened from your sleep by the sound of someone calling Seunim. It's an invisible but distinctly audible sound. Maybe it's the sound of the guardian angel always by our side, a kind of alter ego following us like a shadow. That's the thing about a life that has no order or has grown tedious. You can't hear that voice anymore. It's only when your mind is clear and your conscience is clean that you're able to hear the sound of your alter ego. A cock pheasant sometimes goes about making a big racket when they start crowing. It usually means someone's coming up the mountain, and sure enough, every time I go out to sea, someone's there ascending. Speaking of the crowing cocks, I have a story to tell about the pheasants. In the winter, the pickings aren't that easy, and many of the pheasants gather in the garden to saunter about and pick for scraps. At first, even though I'd put some food out for them, when they'd catch as much as a sight of me, they'd head off immediately. Only after I'd taken full remove would they come back to stay and eat. They didn't seem to trust humans at all. Bit by bit, though, they grew fonder, and the hens would even come peck the ground by my feet and eat at ease. The cocks, on the other hand, only stood and glared. It was only after quite some time that the hens would come swarming around every time that I came out. Once you've reached this point in a relationship, everything else in life kind of gets put to the side, and feeding the kids becomes the first priority. When I hadn't seen the pheasants for a few days, I'd really wonder. Maybe they were nabbed by a hawk or hunted by some wild animals. It'd been some time since I'd seen either cock or hen, and then a few days ago, I see 5 or 6 pheasant chicks coming out of the forest together. I hadn't seen them because they'd been nesting their eggs. In summer, there's so much to eat in the forest, they didn't need to come by the garden very often. Sometimes there's only the cries of the cocks and nothing more. In the forest, just as in the city, the heartless law of the jungle sometimes takes hold. When that happens, the birds' cries get extremely urgent. One day as the sun went down and dusk descended, I was cutting the grass in the vegetable garden when the birds by the well started chirping urgently. Wondering what was up, I headed over with hoe in hand to see, when out flies a hawk It looked like it was about to snatch a few of the chicks. "Hey you, get out of there," I shouted, and the hawk took off. A squirrel who'd seen this all was sitting on a branch and came down. He'd been chirping, doing his part to help out in this neighborhood emergency. Slashing their tails back and forth and chirping away, they rang out their shrill cries in solidarity. The mist turned into a heavy rain yesterday, and a fog hung below in the valley. Even in this downpour, a new bud on the magnolia blossomed. In my opinion, the flower's fragrance is the cleanest, sweetest, and most elegant. Every time I see a flower leaf holding up the stamen like an umbrella, I grow solemn in the face of life's mystery. Seeing the ecology of these flowers, how, once they're determined to bloom, they surge ahead come rain or storm. We lazy humans have so much to learn. Wasps are building a nest above the kitchen door. I saw it in the morning, and it's already the size of a small pumpkin. I realized that I should have gotten rid of it before it got bigger when I'd first seen it about a week ago. The year before last, a wasp stung me several times, and it happened to a bunch of travelers as well. Having disrespected and stung the owner of the house they'd built their own house on, this disgrace brought their dwelling down in spite. Yeah, and then what happens? The homeless wasp wandered around the house for days and didn't know how to leave. The sight was pitiful, my heart ached. Worried about the annoying buzz and high likelihood of getting stung again, I'd intended to get rid of this new nest early, but then I saw how hard they were working, and yesterday my mind shifted. So I offered the wasps these words. "Hey wasps, promise me something. If you don't sting me, or any of the visitors, I'm fine with you building your house here. But if it comes to pass that the owner, or even one of the visitors, gets stung like last time around, you'll be evicted immediately that day. Are we good?" Even though we don't speak each other's languages, as it is said, all beings have Buddha nature, and I believe the meaning of what I said was conveyed. Now, with the terms of the promise having been put all the way into print, I'll be held accountable to these words until the end. Now a little rabbit story for you too. Starts with a rabbit trespassing into the kale garden every night, and me trying and failing to stop him by turning on a light and leaving the radio on. It was useless. Ashamed to be quarreling with an animal over food, I just gave up. One day when the rainy season began, a worker from the big temple came up and planted kale seedlings in the pouring rain. This year I put a net up around the perimeter after starting from seeds in the spring. But when the leaves grew big enough to eat, the rabbits crawled under the net at night while I slept, tearing it up and eating the kale while they were at it. I'd buried the bottom of the net carefully in the dirt all around the garden, but again, it was totally useless. I was thinking about what to do about this, and then one day in broad daylight, a rabbit that had come inside the net saw me, got spooked, and couldn't find its way out as he tried to escape. Running around in terror, the little one had no clue what to do. When I cried out, "Come on, man!" it just got more upset. After crashing into the net full speed a few times, nothing was working. Even wild animals lose their senses when they're spooked. It was a deep snowy night during a really cold winter. The window at that time had no shutters, and owing to the heavy draft, I wasn't sleeping well when I heard a sound from the back door. I opened the door to see what the noise was, and a gray hair jumps right into the room. The moment left me stunned. Being so cold and hungry, this mountain neighbor came to visit, and I hosted as warmly as I could. I served some sweet potatoes I dug out of the pantry, and the guest ended up spending the whole night.